Now we will be discussing the concept of income. Now what basically income is? Here under income tax law, the term income has been defined in section 224. Now income, it is defined in section 2 clause 24. It has been defined in an inclusive manner. It is defined in kya? Inclusive manner. Now basically what income is? Income means what? Income is it's our meaning, normal meaning. Income is a periodical monetary return. It is what? A periodical monetary return coming with some sort of regularity. Coming with some sort of regularity or expected regularity from definite and identifiable sources. So basically income has been defined in section 224 in an inclusive manner, saying that income is a periodical monetary return coming with some sort of regularity or expected regularity from definite and identifiable sources. Say it is just like a fruits of tree. Tree is basically the source and fruits is what? The income. Tree is a source and fruits is the income. Like if you have a house property, and in case if you give this house property on rent, rent is basically your income. Rent is the income. So fundamentally, how income has been defined? Income has been defined in section 2 clause 24 in an inclusive manner. Income includes, here they are giving a list what has been included in the income. So before this we will be going to understand the same only when we read the entire enactment. So don't worry about this definition. You understand the concepts. We will be discussing what? The concepts of income. You can go through once this definition. This is what providing what can be included in the ambit of the income, though it is not asked in the examination. But we have to go for the concepts. And what concept of income provides is what income is. Income means a periodic monetary return which accrues or is expected to accrue regularly from definite and identifiable sources. Income, it may be received in cash or it may be received in kind. Whether you are receiving the income in cash, whether you are receiving the income in kind, that doesn't matter. If the income is received in kind, then we have to value the same. Valuation is to be done as per the valuation rules. So basically income is a periodic monetary return which is coming with some sort of regularity or expected regularity from definite and identifiable sources. And here it is the revenue receipts which are chargeable to tax. Which are what? Chargeable to tax. And not the gross receipts. And not the gross receipts. Gross receipts are not taxable. It is from the gross receipts, we have to deduct the expenditure which is incurred to earn such receipts. After deducting the expenditure, we get what? The net receipts. And those net receipts, they are taxable. So income normally refers to the revenue receipts, and it means the net receipts and not the gross receipts. And the same is taxable either on receipt basis or on due basis as per the method of accounting which is followed by the SSE. He can follow cash system of accounting. He can follow what? Cash system of accounting. or he can follow what? The mercantile system of accounting. So if you are following the cash system of accounting, taxability will arise on receipt basis. When you receive the income, you will be taxing the same. When you are incurring the expense, making payment in cash for the same, you will be what? Allowing it. Whereas in case of mercantile system of accounting, as soon as your income becomes due or expenditure is due, you record the same, and that is what? Income is also taken on accrual basis and expenditure is also taken on due basis, rather than even if we are not making the payment. So it depends upon the method of accounting. Then income may be received in cash or in kind. Income, the same may be received in cash or in kind. So in case if income is received in kind, then you have to value the same in accordance with the valuation rules. If it is received in kind, we have to what? Value it in accordance with the valuation rules. And in case if no valuation rules have been made, then the fair market value. If valuation rules have not been made, then we have to value it as per the fair market value. So income, it may be received in cash or in kind, and in case it is received in kind, the valuation will be as per the prescribed rules, or it will be taken as the fair market value. Then there's whether it's a legal income or whether it's an illegal income, it will be taxable. So illegal income will be taxed in the same manner as legal income is taxable. So income tax law does not make any distinction on point of view of legality, whether you are earning the income from legal sources or whether you are earning the income from illegal sources. Both the incomes are taxable. Then the income must be real and it must not be fictitious. So here there is one real income theory which we can briefly discuss. That is what? Income must be real and not fictitious. In the sense that mere hypothetical entry in the books of accounts will not make the income, will not make it real income. You are just entering anything in the books of accounts. You do not have, say, right to receive the same, and you have made an entry in the books of accounts. Will not make the income that is as your real income. So here, income must be real. The assessee must have a right to receive such income. Assessee, he must have a right to receive such income. The income must be real and not fictitious. Then income must arise from outside sources. That is, no person can make profit by trading with himself. Income, it must arise from outside sources. No person can make profit while trading with himself. Say social clubs are there. They are working on the principle of mutuality. So they are saying that income must arise from outside sources. Income must arise from outside sources. No person can make profit by trading with himself. By trading with himself. That is a fundamental. Here, say mutual associations are there. So surplus arising from mutual association, arising to mutual associations, is not taxable. Like in case of a social club, where they are dealing with their members, they are receiving subscriptions from their members and expending the same for the benefit of the members, and income is not arising from any outside sources, then that surplus will not be taxable. So here, income basically must arise from outside sources, and the same income cannot be taxed twice until and unless the same is otherwise provided in the law, and whether there is a dispute in the title will not withhold the taxability. Income will be taxable in the hands of the person who is what? The recipient of the income. So fundamentally, that is the concept, basic concept of income, which we are discussing. Now there is one concept more, that is about capital receipts and revenue receipts. So in case receipts relating to fixed capital, receipts relating to fixed capital are the capital receipts. Receipts which are relating to the fixed capital, basically they are the capital receipts. And the receipts which are relating to the circulating capital, working capital, they are what? The revenue receipts. So basically what they are saying is, say if you are parting with your stock in trade, receipt on account of sale of stock in trade is a revenue receipt, and receipt on account of sale of a fixed asset is a capital receipt. If there is a, source of income, there is an extinction in that, that source of income cease to exist. If source of income cease to exist, then the compensation so received is what? Capital receipt. But if it is a receipt in lieu of income, source is in existence, but work cannot be performed, then receipt is in lieu of income. There is a loss of profits because of some fire, etc. Then that is what? Revenue receipt. So here, if any compensation received for extinction of a profit earning source in whole or in part is a capital receipt, compensation which is received for loss of profits or earnings is a revenue receipt. Then receipt in substitution of source of income. Receipt in substitution of source of income is a capital receipt. Receipt in substitution of income, not source of income. Receipt in substitution of income is a revenue receipt. Then fundamentally, capital receipts, they are exempt from tax unless expressly taxable. They have been made expressly taxable under the head capital gains. There are heads of income which we will be discussing. Then revenue receipts, basically they are taxable unless they have been made specifically exempt. And certain revenue receipts have been expressly exempt from tax under section 10 to under section 10 to 13A. Then compensation which is received for relinquishing interest in a capital asset is what? A capital receipt, whereas a compensation which is received for relinquishing interest in the stock in trade of business is what? A revenue receipt. Then if you are carrying out any of the transactions which are not in your normal line of business, then profits from those transactions outside the purview of regular trading activities, outside the purview of what? The regular trading activities, they are what? The capital receipts. And basically profits from transactions entered into course of business which is regularly carried on by the assessee, which is incidental or associated with the same, they are what? Revenue receipts. So here profits from transactions outside the purview of regular trading activities of the assessee, they are capital receipts, whereas profits from transactions which are entered into business regularly carried on by the assessee, or they are incidental to or associated with the business, they are revenue received. Now we receive subsidies. In case if any subsidy has been received before what? The commencement of the business. If subsidy has been received before commencement of the business for setting up a new business, you say to acquire a capital asset or to say complete a project, in that particular circumstance, that subsidy is regarded as capital receipt. So if a subsidy is received for acquisition of the capital asset, it will be reduced from the cost structure of the asset. Whereas, if any subsidy has been received for meeting any specific revenue expenditure, or say it is for reimbursement of the expenditure which has already been incurred, then it will be regarded as what? A revenue receipt. So subsidy is treated as a revenue receipt if it is given for existing business or to meet specific revenue expenditure or by way of reimbursement of such expenditure. Then next is what? Profit from sale of shares or securities. Profit from sale of shares or securities which were purchased as an investment, that will be regarded as a capital receipt. Whereas profit on sale of shares which were acquired in ordinary course of trading, if you are a trader or if you are a dealer and you are acquiring those shares in ordinary course of business of dealing, and then it will be regarded as what? Revenue receipts. So fundamentally what is happening here is, here under income tax law, we divide the income in 5 different heads. Now this is what? Heads of income. Income, we divide the income. Income is divided in 5 different heads. Section 14 provides for what? Section 14, it provides for heads of income. So we have to make computation, head-wise computation is to be done. So each head of income is mutually exclusive. If any income is to be taxed in a particular head, then it will be taxed in that head only. It cannot be taxed in any other head then. So here, first head of income is salaries. First head of income is salaries. It is what? Section 15 to section 17. This is our first head of income. And for any income to be taxed under head salaries, what we have to see the relationship between the payer and the payee. You have to see the relationship between the payer and the payee is of employer and employee. It is of employer and employee. What we have to see is the relationship. That is what? There is a master and servant relationship. Master and servant relationship is there. The income to be taxed under this head. Salaries, here you have to tax any income under the head salaries. You have to see what is the relationship. The relationship between the payer and payee, it must be of employer and employee. Master and servant relationship is there. Then our second head of income is income from house property. This is our second head of income. If you give any property on rent, you receive any rent, that rental income is taxed under income from house property, and it is section 22. Section 22 to section 27. Section 22 to section 27, that is the head of income. It is dealing with income from house property. This is what? Income from house property. This is the second head of income, section 22 to section 27. That is income from house property. Then our third head of income is, here what is taxed in, if you want to understand it, Here the annual value is taxed, annual value of the property consisting of building and attached land, of which the assessee is owner, of which the assessee is owner and is not used by him, that property, and is not used by him for his business or profession. So here the taxation is of what? The taxation is of income from house property, section 22 to section 27. If you give any property on rent, so the rental income derived from letting of property it is taxed under this head. Then our third head of income is Third head is the most important head of income, that is profits and gains of business or profession. This is our third head of income. That is what? Profits and gains of business and profession. It is section 28 to section 44 DB. Section 28 to section 44 DB. That is what? Profits and gains of business and profession. This is our third head of income, PGBP. It is our third head of income, which is tax. So if you are carrying on any business, if you are carrying on any profession, and if you are deriving any profits, here losses are also there. So the same will be taxed under this head. This is our third head of income. Then fourth head is capital gains. This is also a very important head of income. It is section 45 to section 55A. Here if a capital asset is there and a transfer takes place of the capital asset, the resultant sum is what? Capital gains. So if you transfer your fixed assets, then the resultant sum will be capital gains. If you transfer your house property and earn profit after the same, it will be capital gains. If you transfer your jewelry, you sell your jewelry, in that case, if you derive any profits, the same will be taxed under the capital gains. And number fifth is income from other sources. This is known as a residuary head of income, section 56 to section 59. This is basically the residuary head of income. It is residuary head of income. So in case if this income of these five heads, when the in case if income is not taxable in the preceding four heads, and the same is also not exempt under the income tax law, then this is taxed under this residuary head. Every remaining income is taxed here. Then we have what the provisions relating to clubbing of income. Basically, it is income of other persons to be included in assessee's total income. We have to make, say, if you have a minor son and we have made an investment in the name of minor son, we have to club the income. So here, section 60 to 65 is what clubbing. This is a separate chapter which we'll be discussing. And then we have kya? Provisions relating to set off of loss, set off of losses, carry forward, and set off. Set off of loss, carry forward, and set off. So in case if we have income under say one head and a loss on the other head, we can adjust those loss. Say we have salary income and loss from house property, we can adjust the same. So provisions relating to set off of losses and carry forward and set off are there, and they are under section 70 to section 80. In between we have aggregation of income also. So here we get what? When we sum total the same, we get what? Gross total income. When we make computation under the 5 heads, clubbing, and then we adjust the losses, and in case brought forward losses are there, they are also adjusted from the same head in which they have occurred in last years. They are adjusted. Then after adjustment we get kya? Gross total income. Sum of these 5 heads, it's known as gross total income. From that we give what? Deductions. Under chapter 6A. We give deductions under chapter 6A, that is section 80C to 80U. 80C to 80U deductions are given. That we get kya? The total income. We get kya? The total income. On this total income, we compute the tax liability. Tax liability is computed at the applicable rates. So this way, we determine how our total income and then we compute the tax liability. So fundamentally here, according to section 14 of the Act, all income basically is categorized in 5 heads. First is what? Salaries. This is very important head of income. Those who are employed persons, they are getting income from salaries, 15 to 17 section it is. Then it is income from house property. Then we have profits and gains of business and profession. We have capital gains and we have income from other sources. And each head of income is mutually exclusive. Income which falls under one head cannot be brought to tax under any other head of income. Income which is brought to tax under one head, they cannot be brought to tax under any other head of income. So basically, correct classification of income under the proper head is mandatory, and in case if you wrongly classify, then that may lead to penal provisions. Incorrect classifications to take undue incentives may lead to penalties, that may lead to prosecution. Then section 14A is there, which is providing that if any expenditure has been incurred to earn any exempt income, expenditure incurred to earn exempt income is not deductible. The same is not deductible. So if any income is exempt from tax, then you cannot claim any expenditure which has been incurred to earn such exempt income. So no deduction shall be allowed to the assessee in respect of expenditure which has been incurred in relation to income which do not form the part of the total income. No deduction will be allowed to him if he is incurring any expenditure in relation to the income which is exempt from tax. What does this mean? When you are not paying any tax on any particular receipt because that receipt has been made exempt, how you can claim the expenditure which has been incurred to earn such income? If that income is taxable, then definitely whatever expenditure has been incurred by you to earn such income, that will be deductible. So here the AO shall determine the amount of the expenditure which is incurred in relation to such income having regard to the accounts of the assessee and if the AO is not satisfied about the correctness of the claim of the assessee. Assessee is claiming that he has not incurred any expenditure to earn exempt income, and his entire expenditure is for the taxable income, and the AO is not satisfied with the same, then he can determine the amount of expenditure which has been incurred by the assessee in relation to exempt income, and AO is empowered to determine that expenditure even if no expenditure has been claimed by the assessee. In case if he is claiming that the entire expenditure is for taxable income and not for exempt income, then also the AO can determine the same. So what section 14A provides is, 14A provides that whatever expenditure has been incurred to earn, say, exempt income, that will be what? Not basically allowed as deduction. There are few topics which we can discuss, though they are basically, one is keyman insurance policy. So basically, if any person is a keyman, if insurance policy is taken for that person, that is known as what? The keyman insurance policy. So here, keyman insurance policy means life insurance policy taken by a person on life of another person. It's a life insurance policy which has been taken by a person on life of another person, who may be the employee of the first mentioned person, or he may be connected in any manner whatsoever with the business of that first mentioned person. So basically, that is keyman insurance policy. And they say that whatever sum is received under keyman insurance policy, including any sum allocated by way of bonus on such policy, is taxable. As premium paid for keyman insurance policy that is deductible, premium which is paid for keyman insurance policy is deductible. Therefore, if any sum is received under keyman insurance policy, including any sum allocated by way of bonus on such policy, the same is what? Considered as income. Then how the taxability will arise? If the policy is assigned to an employee, then whatever sum is received on its maturity, including any sum which is allocated on by way of bonus on such policy, that will be taxable as profits in lieu of salary. So it is assigned to an employee, keyman is employee, and policy matures in his hands. So here the taxability arises in form of salaries. We have seen a salary is the first head of income. Then if policy matures in the person carrying on business or profession, then whatever amount is received, the same is taxable as PGBP. If say it is assigned to any other person, then in case the policy is taken the name of the other person, in case policy is taken the name of any other person or assigned to any other person other than employer or employee, then the sum so received on maturity of that policy, it is taxable under what? Income from other sources. It is taxable where? Under income from other sources, which was asked earlier in exam. So you can go through the definition of manufacture. Basically what manufacture is. Manufacture, it implies a change, but every change is not manufacture. Yet what every change is a result of say any treatment, process, etc. Only that change amounts to manufacture where the original commodity loses existence and a new commodity comes into existence having separate name, character and use. So here the term manufacture has been defined under income tax law. The term manufacture, the same has been defined in income tax law under section 2 clause 29BA, and it means kya? A change in a non-living physical object. It's a change in a non-living physical object, article or thing. A change in a non-living physical object, article or thing, resulting in transformation of the object, resulting in what? Transformation of the object, article or thing into new and distinct object, article or thing having separate name, characteristics and use. Basically, it is a change in non-living physical object, article or thing, resulting in transformation of the object, article or thing into a new and distinct object, article or thing having different characteristics, name and use. Yeah, say bringing into existence of a new and distinct object or article or thing. Bring into existence a new and distinct object, article or thing having say different chemical compositions and integral structure. So fundamentally, if you make something new which is different, it's having a different name, characteristics and utility is there from the original commodity, then it is what? Manufacture. So you can go through once the definition of manufacture, and section 2 clause 32, it has also been defined, say defining person who has a substantial interest in a concern. So Mr. X is there. If he is having 20% or more of voting power, he is a beneficial owner of shares. Say in XYZ Limited. So he will be regarded as having a substantial interest. And say if he is having 20% or more of say profit sharing, then also he will be regarded as having a substantial interest. So what, according to section 232, an individual is said to have substantial interest in a concern if he or she, along with his or her relatives, relatives means husband, wife, brother, sister, lineal ascendant and lineal descendant. So here, if he or she along with his or her relative is at any time during the previous year, beneficial owner of equity shares carrying 20% or more of voting power in the company, he is entitled to 20% or more of profits of such concern. So he will be regarded as a person having substantial interest in the concern. So that was about this. Next topic relating to method of counting and rates of tax we'll be discussing in our next lecture.